On October 13, 2016, the Swedish Academy announced that the Nobel Prize in Literature had been awarded to Bob Dylan for having created new poetic expressions within the great American song tradition. The first musician in the history of the prize, the most radical choice since the Nobel was established in 1901. Bob Dylan said nothing. Not that day, not that week, not the week after. For 3 weeks, the winner of the Nobel Prize in Literature did not acknowledge that he had won it. The Swedish Academy called him impolite and arrogant. When he finally spoke, he told a journalist, "It's hard to believe. Who ever dreams about something like that?" He didn't attend the ceremony in Stockholm. He cited pre-existing commitments. His calendar showed no scheduled performances in December. He delivered his Nobel Lecture 6 months later, the deadline for collecting the prize money, and ended it with something that sounded like a final answer to every question anyone had ever asked about what he was. Songs are unlike literature. They're meant to be sung, not read. This is the story of the Nobel Prize that Bob Dylan almost didn't accept. The Nobel Prize in Literature had, in its 115-year history, been awarded to novelists, poets, playwrights, and essayists. It had never been awarded to a songwriter. The announcement divided the literary world instantly and completely. Some writers were furious. The French author Pierre Assouline described the decision as contemptuous of writers. Another writer compared it to giving a Michelin star to a fast food chain. Others argued that it was the most important literary prize since Samuel Beckett received it in 1969. That Dylan had done more to expand the definition of what literature could be than any conventional choice the Academy could have made. Harvard professor Richard Thomas, a classicist who had spent 40 years studying Homer and Virgil, published a book arguing that Dylan's lyrics contained the same literary allusions as the ancient poets, that Desolation Row and Tempest belonged in the same tradition as the Odyssey. The Swedish Academy's own description was specific: new poetic expressions within the great American song tradition. Not rock and roll, not folk music, poetic expressions. The distinction was important. The Academy was not saying Dylan was a great musician. It was saying he was a great poet who happened to deliver his work through music. Whether you agreed with that or not depended entirely on whether you had spent any time reading the lyrics of Visions of Johanna or Desolation Row on a page without the music. The Nobel Committee called Dylan's work new poetic expressions within the great American song tradition. Do you think song lyrics can be literature in the way a novel or poem can be? For 3 weeks after the Nobel announcement, Bob Dylan gave no official response. He was on tour. He performed concerts without mentioning the prize. His website briefly listed the prize in his biography, then removed it. The Swedish Academy tried to reach him. They could not get a response. Sarah Danius, the permanent secretary of the Swedish Academy, described the situation as impolite and arrogant, a public rebuke of a prize winner that was itself unprecedented in the history of the Nobel. 3 weeks after the announcement, Dylan gave a brief phone interview to the Daily Telegraph. "It's hard to believe," he said. "Whoever dreams about something like that?" He said he would attend the ceremony if it's at all possible. It was not at all possible, as it turned out. In November 2016, the Swedish Academy confirmed that Dylan had sent a personal letter explaining he would not be attending due to pre-existing commitments. His concert schedule showed no performances in December 2016. He sent the singer Patti Smith to accept the prize on his behalf at the ceremony in Stockholm. Smith famously faltered while performing Dylan's "A Hard Rain's a Gonna Fall," had to stop and start again, and was given a standing ovation for recovering. Dylan didn't answer for 3 weeks and didn't attend the ceremony. His calendar had no shows in December. What do you think the silence meant? The Nobel Prize rules require the laureate to deliver a lecture within 6 months of the ceremony or forfeit the prize money. The prize money in 2016 was 8 million Swedish kroner, approximately $900,000 US. Dylan's deadline was June 10, 2017. On June 5, 2017, 5 days before the deadline, Dylan's Nobel Lecture was posted on the Nobel Prize website. It was not read aloud. It was a recording of Dylan's voice delivered in a quiet, measured tone. He spoke about 3 books that had profoundly shaped him: Herman Melville's Moby Dick. He talked about Captain Ahab's obsession and what it meant to pursue something at the cost of everything else. Eric Maria Remarque's All Quiet on the Western Front. He talked about what the First World War did to a generation of young men and how Remarque captured it without sentimentality. Homer's Odyssey. He talked about Odysseus and the long journey home and the strange things encountered on the way. He concluded by talking about what songs were and what they were not. Songs are alive in the land of the living, he said, but songs are unlike literature. They're meant to be sung, not read. It was a statement that could be read as humility, acknowledging that his work belonged to a different category than the prize was designed for. Or it could be read as something more pointed, as the final word in the argument about whether his songs were literature. They were songs, and they were unlike literature, and they were his. Dylan ended his Nobel Lecture. Songs are meant to be sung, not read. Do you read that as humility or as the last word in an argument? In 2016, Bob Dylan was 75 years old. He had been performing continuously for more than 50 years. He had released 39 studio albums. He had won 10 Grammy Awards. He had been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He had been the voice of a generation, the spokesman he never wanted to be, the Judas, the motorcycle crash, the basement tapes, the return, the gospel years, the born-again Christian phase that alienated his secular audience, the comeback, and then the endless tour that he had been running since 1988. The never-ending tour, his people called it, though Dylan himself disputed the name. He had never explained himself, not once, not in any interview, any memoir chapter, any song that could be definitively read as a statement of intent. He had changed his name. He had invented a past. He had gone electric. He had been called Judas. He had crashed a motorcycle and used the crash, or the crash had happened and he had used the recovery. He had won the most important literary prize in the world and not answered the phone for 3 weeks. Every version of Bob Dylan replaced the previous one completely, not as a gradual evolution, but as a total substitution. Robert Zimmerman, the folk troubadour, the electric rock poet, the motorcycle crash survivor, the basement recording artist, the country singer with the changed voice, the born-again Christian, the man on the never-ending tour, the Nobel laureate. He is still touring. He is still changing. He has never once explained himself. And that, more than any single song or album or controversy or prize, may be the most Dylan thing of all. Subscribe. The Bob Dylan Files, all 5 volumes, are on our channel, and we're not done.